Well, the ANC says it will communicate the way forward on Monday after the regular meeting of national officials in terms of what Magashule is doing in court. And I'm joined now by attorney Melusi Xulu from Donda Attorneys, joining us from Durban this evening. And I'm going to start with looking at the Magashule issue. He's basically saying his suspension is unconstitutional. You've had a closer look at the sort of 130 pages or so that he's filed to back up his argument. Just, are you able to sort of crystallize what the nub of his argument is?
Okay, what I focused on when I was reading his papers was he's challenging Rule 25.70, and he's saying it's inconsistent with the letter and the spirit of the Rule 25, which is part of the Constitution of the ANC. And he's saying it's also against, obviously, the Constitution of the Republic, because what he's saying is the rule says if the Secretary General or the Provincial Secretary, under the authority of the NEC, the PwC, is satisfied that when you've been charged with a case and you're appearing in court, you can be suspended temporarily. And then when they finish suspending you, they will also tell you how to behave yourself during the suspension. Now, he's saying, as we know, it was introduced in 2020, this rule. He's saying that is not what is supposed to be done according to Rule 25, where there's supposed to be a disciplinary procedure, a disciplinary committee that will then decide about your misconduct, and you will have a chance to prove whether you don't have to be suspended or not. So I think he's trying to compare this new rule and saying, no, it's supposed to be done in a fair manner so that at least my rights to according to Section 35, to be innocent until proven guilty are protected. Now, what is interesting, before I end on that note, is that he's attached the letter that was done by the former treasurer of the ANC, Dr. Posa, where also Dr. Posa in the letter, it's an 11-page letter. In the end, he says, if this step-aside rule is done in the manner that is being stated, it won't stand in law because it doesn't really look at the procedures that are supposed to be done as per the Constitution of the ANC. So it will be interesting to see how the court will look at the differences between the two to decide whether that suspension is fair or not. Because remember, Rule 25.70 says it must be to the satisfaction of the Secretary General or the Provincial Secretary. And it doesn't say anything about a procedure that must be done.
So he's really delving into the wording and the minutiae of the ANC constitution as the basis of his argument. This is now at the High Court in Gauteng. I'm wondering, is it a matter for the High Court? Isn't it more of a matter for the Labour Court? Because surely this is an issue of employment in a way. Am I explaining this correctly, understanding it correctly?
He took the matter on an urgent basis, so that it's an urgent nature. The High Court can listen to the matter, and then we'll see how it falls out.
Yeah, I see. You know, the response has always been, well, this is a voluntary organisation, and if you sign up to this organisation, them's the rules, basically. So he's saying, yes, but you've interpreted the rules incorrectly. Is that the correct understanding?
Yes, but he's also saying in the papers that the ANC, as a voluntary association, it has its own constitution, but also the constitution is aligned or is guided by the Constitution of the Republic as well.
I see. Okay, so he's also bringing in the constitution of the country. Could he use this court action, do you think, as a basis to say, well, until my legal challenge in the courts is sorted out, until my challenge is well within the party, which I understand he's also launching, I'm no longer suspended? Are there any hard and fast rules about that, or is it up to each individual organisation?
I can see where you're going, that the ANC is empowered to make its own decision about who to keep. I'm not sure how it will pan out, but I think he's just trying to say the Constitution is not followed to the letter, and at least if he's given a chance, if there's a suspension, let it be done in a proper manner, not in a way to say if the Secretary General is satisfied that you must be suspended, then they'll suspend. I think he just wants them to follow Rule 25 or Clause 25 of the Constitution, which of the ANC. Because if you read it according to Appendix 3 of the Constitution of the ANC, it's very clear what must be done if there's misconduct. Now, with the new amendment, it just says the Secretary General must be satisfied. So there's a contradiction. So he wants it to be done in a proper manner. I would assume maybe if it's done to the letter, we'll then see how if that will be fair or not for him. Because he's raising the fact that it must be done according to the Constitution, where there must be a fair procedure for him.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Of course, there's a prominent issue coming to the courts on Monday in KwaZulu-Natal. Former President Jacob Zuma and French arms company Tyler is back in court. But of course, the first issue that's going to have to be dealt with is the fact that Zuma's legal team has pulled out. I understand Eric Mabuza is going to have to come before an open court and explain his reasons. What are the reasons that he's liable to give? I mean, we expect him to say there's an issue of money, but there could also be a principled issue that he may raise. What are the options that the court could accept for a legal representative to pull out?
There are three things that come to mind. I'll end with the financial reason. I'll start with the possible one, if there may be ethical reasons. An attorney can say, ethically, there are things that I'm not agreeing with my client, and therefore I decide to withdraw. And the second one can be if the attorney says the legal strategy that they have, they are not agreeing with the legal strategy. It's got nothing to do with the legal or the ethics, but it's got something to do with the legal strategy. There's no agreement on the legal strategy. That could be the one. But I think what we are all thinking, we're assuming at this point, especially since he discussed the matter with the attorney, Mr. Spoor, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, who said he will assist on a pro bono basis. We can look at the financial reasons as well. Remember, the Supreme Court of Appeal decided that it's not in the interest of the public that the resources of the states must be used to support an individual or a former office bearer who has a personal case, especially if it's alleged to be corrupt activities. And if you look at the States Act, it doesn't say anything about supporting a former office bearer on an individual case, the States Attorneys Act, which is the 1957 Act. So I'm thinking it will be one of those reasons, but we can't really say now until we hear on Monday what Mabuza attorneys will say on the day.
All right, so that's likely what we're likely to hear around one of those three issues. And does that suggest that it's almost confirmed that it'll be another postponement?
It will be another postponement. I think the deciding factor is a section I like to quote in this situation, Section 342A of the Criminal Procedure Act, where if it will be investigated if the reasons are reasonable or not. So one must ask himself or herself, is it fair for the matter to be postponed for one to get another legal team, which every citizen in the country has a right to? So I think that will be the main deciding factor, whether it should be fair or not. And I think it looks reasonable that he should get that chance, although one will say there's been a lot of changes in the legal team. But if the reason is financial, it will make sense for me for him to say, I don't have a legal team at this moment because of funds, but I'm arranging that, and I need to be given time. But I haven't heard of any team that has joined yet. So we'll hear on Monday whether there will be a new team after the Mabuza attorneys.
Thank you so much for your insights. We do appreciate it. Melusi Xulu from Donda Attorneys joining us from Durban.